Welcome back to Still Becoming, a podcast for honest conversations about growth, faith, identity, and the unfolding process of becoming more ourselves. I'm Jazzy, and I'm here with my co-host and dear friends, Steph and Drew.
Hi, everyone. We're thrilled you're joining us again.
Thanks for being here. This one feels especially close to the heart.
In the last episode, we talked about the story that shapes us, the moments and experiences that brought us into our current season of becoming. Today, we want to talk about something that also gets overlooked in growth conversation, grace. Because becoming isn't just about change. It's about how we change and whether we allow ourselves to grow without punishment, pressure, or perfection. If you've ever felt like you're behind, doing growth wrong, or failing at healing, this episode is for you. There's an unspoken pressure in so many healing and self-growth spaces to constantly be improving, always learning lessons, always emerging stronger. For a long time, I felt becoming that constantly working on myself and fixing myself, doing what others wanted me to do. Living with a disability has taught me that growth doesn't always look like showing motion. Sometimes it seems like less. Sometimes it looks like asking for help. Sometimes it looks like staying exactly where you are and choosing compassion instead of criticism. But even though that, I still believe that grace has to be earned.
A lot of that pressure comes from the idea that healing has to be visible to be valid. If we're not talking about it, posting about it, or producing something from it, it feels like it doesn't count. I've had seasons where the most honest work I was doing looked like nothing from the outside. I was just surviving the day, learning to breathe again, letting myself be tired without judging it. Grace, for me, has been learning that rest isn't a reward for productivity. It's a requirement for being human. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop pushing and start listening to your body.
I see that pressure so alive, faith self movement faces to this is expectation that if you're growing, you should always be getting better, stronger, or more certain. But real growth has really more question that your grace has been allowing myself to sit in a certainty without labeling it as failure. This is hard for me to accept because uncertainty makes me very personal, but I'm learning that it's a necessary part of growth. Becoming isn't about reaching a version of yourself that never struggled. It's about learning how to stay present with yourself while you struggle.
Drew sees that pressure shows up a lot in faith and self-improvement spaces too. There's this expectation that if you're growing, you should always be getting better, stronger, and more certain. but real growth has brought him more questions. Grace has meant allowing himself to sit in uncertainty without labeling it as failure. This is hard for Drew to accept because uncertainty makes him very uncomfortable, but he's learning that it is a necessary part of growth. Becoming isn't about reaching a version of yourself that never struggles. It's about learning how to stay present with yourself while you struggle.
I want to share something that happened recently. Something small on the surface, but deeply awakening for me. I was in a section with my counselor, and at one point, she looked at me and said, Jazzy, you're not broken. You don't need to be sick. And I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until it landed. Because for so long, I've been moving through life with this quiet belief that something about me was wrong. That if I just worked harder, healed faster, or explained myself better, I'd finally become acceptable, whole, enough. Someone stopped me in my tracks. Not broken, not a project. That's something that needs correcting. I'm just human. Since that moment, I've been on a different kind of journey. Not one focused on fixing myself, but on understanding myself better. I've been paying attention to the habits I picked up in survival mode. The ways I overexplain, the ways I shrink myself, the way I anticipate other people's discomfort before honoring my own needs. And I'm slowly learning to unlearn what no longer serves me, not out of selfishness or with shame, but with compassion and curiosity. This season of becoming isn't about tearing myself apart to rebuild something better. It's about realizing I was never broken to begin with. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. But I'm doing it from a place of grace, not self-rejection. And that has changed everything.
When you said, "You're not broken," it really hit me. Because so many of us move through life assuming we're a problem that needs solving. I've spent years asking, "What's wrong with me?" instead of "What happened to me?" or "What do I need right now?" The shift from fixing to understanding changes the whole tone of growth. It creates space for compassion instead of shame. And it reminds us that healing does not require us to hate who we've been.
What stands out to me is the idea of unlearning. A lot of what we call bad habits were once survival skills. They help us cope. They may sense the earlier seasons of our lives. Lately, honoring the parts of ourselves without letting them run the show forever. Unlearning isn't about blaming your past self. It's about gently reflecting on your past self and closely choosing differently now.
What stands out to Drew is the idea of unlearning. A lot of what we call bad habits were once survival skills. They helped us cope. They made sense in earlier seasons of our lives. Grace means honoring those parts of ourselves without letting them run the show forever. Unlearning isn't about blaming your past self. It's about gently reflecting on your past self and boldly choosing differently now.
Grace doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. It means meeting yourself honestly without cruelty. For me, grace looks like letting myself change my mind, honoring my limits without explaining them, and allowing joy, even when everything isn't resolved or figured out. Grace is choosing gentleness, even when the world expects toughness.
Practically speaking, grace has meant lowering the bar, not because I'm giving up, but because I'm being honest about my capacity. It's choosing one small, sustainable thing instead of 10 overwhelming ones. It's letting enough be enough and trusting that I'm still becoming, even on days when all I do is show up.
I think it's important that grace and accountability are not opposites. Grace doesn't mean avoiding growth. It means approaching growth without shame. When grace leads, we tell the truth without trying to hurt others. And capacity truth is what I believe makes change possible.
Drew feels that it's important to say that grace and accountability are not opposites. Grace does not mean avoiding growth. It means approaching growth without shame. When shame drives the process, we rush, hide, and perform. When grace leads, we tell the truth without trying to hurt others. And compassionate truth is what actually makes change possible.
For those of us navigating faith alongside identity, grace can be complicated. There were seasons when I believed I had to become acceptable before I could be loved by God or people. But I'm learning that grace isn't a reward for being tolerable. It's a foundation. Becoming doesn't require erasing parts of yourself. It asks you to bring all of yourself, honestly.
Grace has helped me hold faith with open hands instead of clenched fists. It's okay to question. It's okay to rest. And it's okay to not have the answers. Faith does not require certainty. It requires honesty. And honesty is a form of trust.
One of the most freeing things about grace is realizing you don't have to arrive somewhere alone. You belong in the process, not after the healing, not after the crying, not after you figure everything out right here as you are.
Drew feels that one of the most freeing things about grace is realizing you don't have to arrive somewhere else to belong. You belong in the process, not after the healing, not after the clarity, not after you've figured everything out. Right here, as you are.
One of the most freeing things I'm learning is that becoming doesn't come with a deadline. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not failing because you're still figuring things out. You're human. At least makes room for that.
If you're tired, you are allowed to rest. Growth will still be here when you're ready. Be gentle with yourself. You deserve that.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Remember, you don't have to rush into becoming. You don't have to perfect it. And you don't have to fix yourself to be worthy. You're still becoming. And please, just become with you.
If something from today's episode resonated, we genuinely love to hear from you. You can email us anytime at podcaststillbecoming@gmail.com. That's podcaststillbecoming@gmail.com. Whether it's just a reflection, a story, a question, or just to say hello. You can also follow us and join the conversation on social media. We are on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Your voice matters here, and this space is better because you are part of it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and enjoy the process of becoming.